I think another way of looking at this for me is what I characterize as the difference between a library and a framework. Um, to me, a library is more like I would call React more of a library approach and Angular more of a framework approach. React is basically saying, I'm not going to make a lot of decisions for you, and you can bring in other libraries and other systems to do that for you. Whereas something like Angular was more like, I'm going to make a lot of these decisions for you. And I think this ties directly into React Admin, because React Admin I would characterize as being more of a framework approach where it's like, yeah, we've made a lot of these decisions up front, and this I presume will allow you to build applications much quicker because you no longer have to glue everything together yourself, right? So my experience, like going back to what I mentioned earlier in the episode, I was working on this admin project, and the business team came to us and they said, hey, so I know you guys built this great admin interface and all of us admins here love it, right? But yeah, we actually have customers, and we want to give them access to part of this admin interface. And this is where using something like React Admin, I would have been like, oh, okay, this is sort of a different problem I'm trying to solve. Like, is React, can I even do this, you know? And so the question for you here is, when you're designing React Admin, is that something that you consider, you know, the potential that somebody might be using it for not what you intended to use it for? And does that enter into your design decisions, or are you just approaching it as we are laser focused on this is what it's for and people can figure it out if they want anything else?
Yeah, I think that's a big trap. It's a trap. If you generalize too much, you will over-engineer a lot, and I've done that. I'm guilty of having done that numerous times. When you're laser focused, you do something that works on one use case, and then people may say, "Okay, can I use it for that? Can I use it for that?" And what we do is we look at the way we designed it. If it doesn't bend it too much, if it's not too hard, we accept it. If it doesn't work with our design, we say no, and we say no a lot with React Admin. It's hard to because people have genuine needs, and many apps have the same needs. But if it doesn't work with the design we've had, then we prefer to build another feature for it. We prefer to postpone that, because when you generalize too much, you have many new costs. The first one is that it's harder to learn. It's harder to learn an abstract framework when you have to do the mental path between this abstraction and your own need. For instance, if you have, let's say in an admin, you have an abstract form stuff where you would inject everything that's possible. Whereas in React Admin, we have a form where you have already a layout of inputs, where you already have a basic validation, you have a submit button, etc. So with this pre-built approach, then we can address needs faster. So yeah, if you're very abstract, then you need you have a steeper learning curve. But then one thing we were confronted with React Admin is that the more and more feature we added, the more and more we had to reuse logic between each of these features. So eventually we had to build this abstract library, but we don't really expose it. In React Admin, it's called Array Core. So it's one of the packages used by React Admin. It's also open source, but it's mostly internal hooks and components that are reusable logic for the components that we expose. And we don't document them because they are too abstract, and because that would be I mean, people don't need to look under the hood how it's built to actually use it. You don't need to know how a car engine works to drive a car, right? And that's the same approach we have with React Admin. You have a car, you can just learn how to drive it, and you can also have access to the engine if you want. But okay, you need different skills. So to summarize, I'd say we try to focus on very on use case that we know. The best would be problems that we are on with our own customers, so we know perfectly well the problem, and we can quite well evaluate whether a solution is good or not. And when we have people that come with other problems, well, we start by trying to understand the problem very much. And if it works with what we have, we accept it. If it doesn't, we say, okay, maybe you should start your own framework, maybe, or maybe you can publish it as a third party package for React Admin. That would be a great idea. But the other trap is that people come and say, okay, I have done this complement to React Admin. Here is the code. Can you add it to your library? And if you say yes, then you've become the maintainer of someone else's code. And you have to write the documentation, you have to fix the bugs, and et cetera, et cetera. And if you don't have that use case, well, it's a solution that you may never experience. So I'm not sure it's a good idea. So yeah, React Admin will never be what other people think it will be, because we try to keep it to a problem that we know.
I completely agree with you on all of that. I think especially when you talk about over engineering, it's sort of the classic sort of, introductory junior level programmer take, where it's like, you just keep abstracting and keep adding things. And it's like I'd be in code reviews and it's like, do we really, is this really necessary? This, you created all of this just for this one use case. I mean, can we, say no sometimes? So I completely agree. And I think when it comes to the long-term health and sustainability of a project, that's critical. Otherwise, you're going to grow into something unmaintainable. Would you agree?
Yeah. And I'm thinking about the way we currently add new functionality to React Admin. We start by adding functionality to a real app or a storybook, an app in a storybook. So we write down in pure React, and it works. But it's a lot of code, and we have to integrate with many third-party libraries, with routing, with the theming, with the forms, etc., etc. So all that code is not easy to write, and we think, what would be easier to write? What would be a better API for that particular feature? And so we try to extract what we did and add an API for that. And we test this API in different use cases. And usually the first try is not the right one. So we have to repeat that quite a few times. But then we end up with something that we're satisfied and that can be used in various use cases, but not too various. So we start by something very concrete, something that is a real app, and then we extract. And the hard part is designing the glue between the code we've extracted and the application code, how to make that declarative, how to make it easy to be configured, easy to learn. And that's, I'd say that's the hardest part, because it's like doing UX for developers. So you have to know how they think, you have to know how they look for documentation. They never look for documentation. They just expect VS Code to do autocomplete for them, or the error message to tell them what the problem is, etc., etc. So, yeah, this is the hard part. And if you do it otherwise, you say, okay, I want to build something very abstract to solve that problem. Then you will probably hit a wall regarding this developer API. You will build something that is super configurable. It's probably beautiful code, but it will be very hard to make it usable.